welcome to my channel. Without further ado, let's jump right into it. Story 1. One night, my friends and I decided to check out this old abandoned house in the woods. I don't even know why we thought it was a good idea, especially since it was already getting dark. But you know how it is when you're with friends. One bad idea turns into a group decision. It was around 9 p.m., and we grabbed some flashlights, figuring we'd just take a quick look and leave. As we were heading there, my buddy Ryan was all excited, saying stuff like, "Dude, I've heard the stories about this place. They say it's haunted, but I don't believe it." He was way too hyped for something that could end badly. The house had been abandoned for decades, and people always talked about weird stuff happening there. But I'd never paid attention to those stories until now. We finally made it to the house, and honestly, it looked like something straight out of a horror movie. Broken windows, creaky wood, and a front porch that looked like it would collapse if you took one wrong step. But Ryan, being Ryan, marched right up the steps like it was no big deal. "Come on, let's check it out," he said, as if we weren't standing in front of a place that could have been haunted for all we knew. Reluctantly, we followed him inside. The first thing that hit me was the smell. It was this musty, old odor like the house hadn't been touched in years, which was probably true. Ryan, of course, thought it was hilarious. We walked through the front room, and everything was covered in dust. There were old, broken-down chairs and a table that looked like it hadn't been used since forever. At this point, I was already feeling uneasy, but Ryan kept pushing us to explore more. We went deeper into the house, into what seemed like a living room, or maybe a dining room. Honestly, it was hard to tell with all the debris. That's when things started getting weird. It was close to 10 p.m. by now, and we were all kind of on edge. Suddenly, out of nowhere, we heard this faint sound. At first, it was soft, almost like wind, but it quickly turned into what sounded like whispering. I stopped dead in my tracks, and so did the rest of us. Ryan, though, just brushed it off. "It's probably the wind or something. Don't be scared," he said, but I could tell even he was starting to feel uneasy. The whispering got louder, and it sounded like it was coming from the second floor. Ryan was about to head upstairs when I stopped him. "Dude, I'm not going up there," I said, and my other friend, Mike, backed me up. "Yeah, man, this is enough. Let's just head back to the car." Ryan looked disappointed but agreed. We turned to leave, but as we were heading toward the front door, the whispering followed us. It wasn't just random sounds anymore. It sounded like actual voices, like someone, or something, was speaking, but we couldn't make out the words. We picked up the pace, practically running toward the front door, and that's when I heard it. Clear as day, right behind me, a voice whispered, "Don't leave." I froze, my heart racing. I whipped around, but there was no one there. The others must have heard it too, because Ryan's face went pale, and he didn't say a word. We bolted out of that house and ran straight to the car. The second we got inside, I turned to Ryan and asked, "Dude, did you hear that?" Ryan nodded slowly, his hands shaking on the steering wheel. "Yeah, I heard it. Let's just get out of here." We sped out of there like our lives depended on it. That night, when we got back to my place, none of us could sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I could still hear that voice, telling me not to leave. It messed me up for days. Ryan was the worst, though. For the next 3 nights, he kept waking up in the middle of the night, convinced he could hear whispering outside his window. After a week of this, Ryan finally came clean to his parents about what had happened. His mom did this cleansing ritual to get rid of any bad spirits, and they brought in a shaman to bless his house. I don't know if it worked or if it was just the comfort of doing something, but after that, the whispering stopped. We never went back to that house. Every now and then, someone in town will bring it up, talk about the weird things that happen there, but I just keep quiet. I don't need to relive that night. Once was enough. Story 2. One evening, My cousin and his buddy decided to head out to this old hiking trail in the middle of nowhere for a late night walk. It was around 10 p.m., and honestly, I don't know why they thought hiking in the dark was a good idea. There's barely any light, and the trail's known for being a little sketchy after sundown. On the way there, his buddy was all hyped up, saying things like, "Man, this trail is supposed to be so peaceful at night. You can hear nothing but nature." And yeah, sure, I guess that's cool, but personally, I wouldn't be caught dead out there at that time. They finally got there and started walking down the path, flashlights in hand, but not really paying much attention. My cousin's friend was having the time of his life, talking about how calming the darkness was, and how you could see the stars so clearly out there. My cousin, though, not so much. He's the kind of guy who goes along with whatever but never really enjoys it. He'd rather be at home playing video games. It was getting close to 10 p.m., and the trail was getting creepier as the wind picked up. My cousin started to get uneasy and said, "Hey, maybe we should head back. It's getting late." But his friend was still feeling the vibe and said, "Come on, we've come this far. Let's go just a little further." Now, my cousin couldn't exactly argue. His friend was driving and he didn't know how to get back on his own. So he followed along, even though he was getting more freaked out by the minute. Eventually, it was nearly midnight, and they were deep into the woods at this point. The trail was narrow, with trees on either side, and the air was freezing. My cousin was about to insist they turn around when he heard something strange. At first it was faint, but then he realized it sounded like footsteps behind them. They stopped walking, but the sound didn't stop. Freaked out, my cousin whispered, "Dude, do you hear that?" His friend, starting to look a little less confident, said, "Yeah, but it's probably just an animal, right?" They kept walking, but the footsteps continued, always a few steps behind them. No matter how fast they walked, the sound kept up. By now, both of them were getting scared, but they didn't want to admit it. Then, all of a sudden, they heard a low, moaning sound, almost like someone groaning in pain, coming from deeper in the woods. It was getting closer. At that point, my cousin had had enough. "Dude, we need to get out of here, now," he said, trying to keep calm, but failing. His friend nodded, and they turned around, walking fast. But as they did, the moaning got louder, almost like it was following them. By the time they got back to the car, the sound was right behind them, and they could hear twigs snapping, like something or someone was right there, just out of sight. They jumped into the car, locked the doors, and sped off without looking back. My cousin was shaking the whole ride home, and his friend didn't say a word. When they finally got back to their apartment, they sat there in silence for a good 10 minutes, just trying to process what happened. That night, my cousin couldn't sleep. Every time he closed his eyes, he heard those footsteps and that groaning. He swore it felt like something was in the room with him. For the next few nights, he kept having nightmares and waking up in a cold sweat. His friend wasn't doing much better either. They didn't talk about it for a while, but one day, my cousin came over to our place and told my parents everything. My mom lit some incense and did a little blessing for him, something she's done before when things like this happen. My dad, who's superstitious, told him he never should have gone there at night. I remember my dad saying, "You were asking for trouble going out there after dark." That's when spirits wander. Turns out there had been stories about that trail for years, people hearing strange noises, seeing shadows, and even disappearing. My dad warned him not to go there again. They never did. Story 3. I wasn't much of a hiker. I never really got into it. My friends always said it was good for the soul or whatever, but I didn't buy it. Still, there was this one single time, that I gave in and went on a hike with a couple of friends. They promised me it'd be easy. Just a walk in the woods, they said. Yeah, right. So, there we were, in the middle of nowhere, miles away from the nearest town. The trail wasn't even one of those popular ones where you might run into other people. No, this was some hidden path deep in the forest, one of those places that probably only a handful of people had ever walked. I didn't care though. I figured I'd just power through it and be done with it. At first, everything was fine. The trees were tall and the air smelled fresh, like I was supposed to appreciate all that, right? I was mostly focused on keeping up with my friends and trying not to trip over every rock and root on the ground. Honestly, the only thing on my mind was how much longer we'd be out there. I wasn't built for this kind of thing, you know? But then, something weird happened. We were walking along, and out of the corner of my eye, I noticed something moving. At first, I thought it was just a shadow, maybe a bird or some small animal rustling in the bushes. But when I looked over, I realized it wasn't just some little critter. No, this thing was huge. It was a snake, a big one. I'm talking like those snakes you see in movies, the ones that look way too large to be real. But the weirdest part? This snake had only one eye. I'm serious. One big, bulging eye right in the middle of its head. It was just sitting there, staring at me from behind some bushes, like it was waiting for something. I froze. My brain couldn't process it. I mean, snakes don't have one eye, right? That's not a thing. But there it was, plain as day, just watching me. I tried to call out to my friends, but the words got stuck in my throat. I couldn't move, couldn't talk, nothing. It was like the snake had me in a trance or something. I couldn't even look away from that eye. It was huge, and it felt like it was pulling me in. Like the longer I stared at it, the more it wanted to take control of me or something. I don't know. It's hard to explain. Finally, after what felt like forever, I managed to snap out of it. I blinked, and when I looked again, the snake was gone, just like that. Vanished. I thought maybe I imagined it. Maybe the hike was getting to me, or I was just tired. Yeah, that had to be it. I didn't say anything to my friends. I figured they'd think I was crazy. We kept walking, and I tried to shake off the weird feeling, but it stuck with me. The rest of the hike went by in a blur. I didn't really pay attention to where we were going or what we were doing. My mind kept going back to that snake, its single freaky eye and the way it just stared at me. I could still feel it, like it was watching me, even though it was long gone. By the time we made it back to the car, I was pretty out of it. My friends asked if I was okay, and I just shrugged it off, saying I was tired. That wasn't a lie. I was exhausted, but not just from the hike. It felt like the snake had drained something from me, like it took a piece of me with it. I don't know. It sounds stupid, but that's how it felt. Anyway, we got home, and I tried to put it out of my mind. Took a shower, grabbed something to eat, and figured I'd just sleep it off. I thought once I got some rest, I'd feel better. But that's when things got really weird. That night, I had the strangest dream. It started off normal, just random stuff, like flashes of places I'd been or people I knew. But then, everything shifted, and I was back on that trail. Except this time, I was alone. My friends were gone, and it was just me walking through the woods again. The trees were taller than I remembered, and the path seemed narrower, like it was closing in on me. And then I saw it, the snake. It was right there in the middle of the path, coiled up like it was waiting for me. But it wasn't just any snake. It was the snake, the one with the single eye. Only this time, the eye was glowing. It had this eerie greenish glow to it that lit up the whole area around it. I tried to turn around and run, but my legs wouldn't move. It was like I was stuck in place, just like before. The snake started slithering toward me, slow at first, but then it sped up. I could hear it moving through the grass, that horrible slithering sound getting louder and louder. It got so close that I could see every scale on its body, each one gleaming in the light from its eye. I tried to scream, but nothing came out. All I could do was stand there and watch as it moved closer and closer. The whole time, that glowing eye was locked on me, like it was reading my mind or something. And then, just when I thought it was going to reach me, the snake reared up. It lifted its head high into the air, just like in the forest, and I could see its single eye looking down at me. It was so close, I could feel the heat coming off its body, and the air around me felt thick, like I was being smothered by something I couldn't see. The snake opened its mouth, and I swear I heard it hiss my name. Not just a normal hiss, though. It was like a whisper, like it was trying to tell me something. I couldn't make out the words, but the sound sent chills down my spine. And then, before I could react, the snake lunged at me. That's when I woke up. I shot out of bed, drenched in sweat, my heart pounding in my chest. It took me a minute to remember where I was, but even then, I couldn't shake the feeling. It was just a dream, but it felt real, too real. I could still feel that eye staring at me, even though I was awake. I tried to calm down, telling myself it was just my imagination running wild, but no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't shake the feeling that the snake wasn't done with me yet. I didn't sleep for the rest of the night. I couldn't. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that glowing eye staring at me. The next day, I told my friends about the dream. They just shrugged it off, saying it was probably from being out in the sun too long, or maybe I ate something weird before bed. Over the next few days, I tried to go about my life like normal, but the dream kept coming back. Every night, I'd see the snake again. Sometimes it would be in the same spot on the trail, and other times it would be in different places I'd never even been. But no matter where I was, the snake always found me, and that eye was always watching me. I started to dread going to sleep. I knew what was waiting for me in my dreams, and I didn't want to face it again. But no matter how hard I tried to stay awake, I always ended up back in that same place, with that same glowing eye staring me down. Weeks went by, and I kept having the feeling that the snake was still out there, waiting for me. I stopped going out into the woods, stopped hiking altogether. I didn't want to risk seeing that thing again. But even then, I knew it didn't matter. I knew it didn't matter, because the snake was already in my head. It had been from the moment I saw it. The dreams kept coming, every night without fail. Sometimes they were short, like flashes of the snake coiled up in the woods, its eye watching me from the shadows. Other times they were long and drawn out, and I'd be stuck in the dream for what felt like hours, unable to escape as the snake slithered closer and closer. The worst part was, I couldn't talk to anyone about it. Who would believe me? My friends were already brushing it off, and I didn't want them to think I was losing my mind. I tried to act normal around them, but it was getting harder. Every day I felt more and more drained, like the snake was feeding on me in some way, draining my energy and my will to keep going. One night, after another brutal dream, I woke up and couldn't shake the feeling that something was in the room with me. It was like I could feel its presence, even though I couldn't see it. My heart was racing and my mouth was dry. I sat up in bed and looked around, but there was nothing there, just the same old room, the same old shadows. But the feeling wouldn't go away. I couldn't explain it, but I felt like the snake was getting closer, not just in my dreams, but in real life. I started seeing it in the corner of my vision just for a split second, and then it would disappear before I could really focus on it. Once, I thought I saw it slithering through the grass while I was walking home. Another time, I swore I saw its reflection in a shop window as I passed by. It was always the same, just a flash, just enough to make me doubt myself. The worst time, though, was when I was lying in bed one night, trying to fall asleep. I had the lights off, and the room was completely dark. But as I lay there, staring at the ceiling, I saw something moving in the darkness. At first, I thought it was just my eyes playing tricks on me, but then I realized it wasn't just a shadow. It was the snake. I could see its body, coiled up in the corner of the room, just barely visible in the darkness. And then I saw the eye. It was glowing, just like in my dreams, and it was staring right at me. I froze. I didn't know what to do. My brain was screaming at me to get up, to turn on the lights, to do something, but I couldn't move. It was like the snake had paralyzed me again, just like the first time I saw it on the trail. I couldn't even breathe. The snake started moving toward me, slow at first, but then faster. I could hear it slithering across the floor, that horrible sound of its scales scraping against the wood. It was getting closer and closer, and I couldn't do anything to stop it. Finally, when it was right at the edge of my bed, I snapped out of it. I jumped up and turned on the light, my heart pounding so hard I thought it might explode out of my chest. But when the room lit up, the snake was gone. There was nothing there, no sign of it, no trace that it had ever been there at all. I stood there for a long time, just staring at the spot where I'd seen it, trying to make sense of what had just happened. I wanted to believe it was all in my head, that I was just seeing things because of the dreams. But deep down, I knew it wasn't just my imagination. The snake was real. It wasn't just in my dreams anymore. It was in the real world too, and it was coming for me. The next few days were a blur. I couldn't focus on anything. I was constantly on edge, looking over my shoulder, expecting to see the snake at any moment. I started avoiding mirrors and dark corners, afraid that I'd see its glowing eye staring back at me. After a few weeks, the snake was everywhere now, not just in my dreams. I'd see it slithering through the trees when I went outside, or hiding in the shadows of my apartment. I could feel its eye on me all the time, watching me, waiting for something. I started wondering if I was losing my mind. Maybe the whole thing was just some kind of weird hallucination brought on by the hike, or stress, or something. But it didn't feel like that. It felt real, too real to be just my imagination. One night, I was so tired, I couldn't keep my eyes open, and before I knew it, I was drifting off to sleep, and that's when the worst dream of all happened. This time, it didn't start with the trail or the woods. I was back in my room, lying in bed just like I had been before I fell asleep. Everything felt so real, like I wasn't dreaming at all. I could even hear the sound of traffic outside, the hum of the city. But then, I saw it again. The snake. It was in the corner of the room, just like before, coiled up and staring at me with its one glowing eye. I tried to move, but I couldn't. My body was frozen, locked in place. The snake started slithering toward me, its body moving so slowly. When the snake reached the edge of the bed, it reared up, just like it had in the forest. Its head loomed over me, that single eye glowing brighter than ever. I tried to scream, but no sound came out. The snake lowered its head, getting closer and closer to my face, until I could feel its breath on my skin. And then it spoke. Not in words exactly, but in my head. I could hear its voice, soft and hissing, whispering things I couldn't understand. It wasn't speaking any language I knew, but somehow I understood what it was saying. It was telling me that it was going to take me, that I belonged to it now. I woke up screaming, drenched in sweat, my heart pounding so hard I thought it might explode. The room was empty, but I could still feel the snake's presence. I was at my breaking point. I finally broke down and talked to my parents. I remember sitting in their living room, my hands trembling, as I recounted everything that had happened. I was expecting them to laugh it off or think I was crazy, but their faces grew serious. My mom looked at me with concern, and my dad's expression was one of worry. "We need to get you help," my mom said softly. "This isn't just in your head. We're going to get someone who can help you." A few days later, they brought in a shaman. I didn't know much about this kind of thing, but at that point, I was willing to try anything. The shaman performed a ritual in our living room. I watched in a daze, feeling both hopeful and skeptical. The ritual lasted for hours, and when it was over, the shaman sat me down and explained what had happened. The snake wasn't just a dream, they said. It had taken a part of your soul. It was feeding on your energy, and it was getting stronger. I felt a chill run down my spine. The shaman explained that they had performed a soul retrieval ritual to bring back the part of me that had been lost. They did some sort of cleansing and rebalance my energy. Then, they advised that I change my name as a final step to fully sever any connection with the snake. It was a way to start fresh and close that chapter of my life. So, with a mixture of apprehension and relief, I went through the name change. It felt like a new beginning. The nightmares stopped, and slowly I started to feel like myself again. The snake was gone, and my nights were finally free from its presence. It wasn't an easy journey, but talking to my parents and going through the ritual was the turning point. I don't know if I'll ever fully understand what happened, but I'm just grateful that it's over. Now, I can sleep without fear. Story 4. I was hanging out with friends at this park we all loved. We'd been there since early afternoon, just enjoying the sun, playing some games, and talking about the most random stuff. Everything was great, and I was having a blast. The park was huge and had this old school vibe with big oak trees and a big open field. We were just goofing off, like we always do, and as night started to fall, we knew it was time to head out. Everyone started gathering their stuff and heading toward the parking lot. I was about to follow them when I suddenly felt this sharp pain in my stomach. It was one of those sudden, urgent pains that you can't ignore. So, I told my friends to go ahead and that I'd catch up in a bit. I made my way to the park's restroom, which was kind of isolated, set back a bit from the main area of the park. The bathroom was old and a little creepy, but it wasn't like I had a lot of choices. I shuffled in, hoping this would be quick. The place was deserted, and the flickering fluorescent lights made it look even more rundown. I tried to shake off the uneasy feeling as I went to the stall. I didn't think much of it, but as soon as I sat down, I started to hear some faint knocking. It wasn't loud, just a gentle tapping sound coming from the stall next to me. My first thought was that someone else had come in, but the bathroom was still empty, as far as I could tell. The knocking continued, but then it stopped suddenly, replaced by a weird gasp, like someone had just caught their breath or was surprised. I felt a shiver run down my body. The place was so quiet now. It was almost too quiet. My stomach was still in pain, but my mind was racing. I couldn't help but wonder if someone was in trouble, or if maybe I'd heard something I wasn't supposed to. The knocking and gasp were playing over and over in my head, making my heart beat faster. I tried to calm myself, thinking it was just my nerves getting the best of me. I finished up and slowly stood up, still feeling off balance. I took a deep breath, trying to shake off the weirdness, and then I walked out of the stall. I looked at the adjacent stall, trying to see if there was any sign of what might have happened. It was an old metal door with a small latch on the outside. I reached over and gave it a gentle push to see if it was locked. At first, the door didn't move, and I thought someone was in it, doing their business. But then, it creaked open slightly. My heart skipped a beat. I looked inside, and it was empty. There was no one there, just the usual old bathroom grime and a few pieces of toilet paper. I thought maybe it was just my imagination playing tricks on me. I shook my head, trying to laugh it off, and I turned to leave. Just as I was about to step out, I couldn't get rid of the feeling of being watched. I turned back to take one last look at the stall. That's when I saw it, a ghostly head peeking out from behind the edge of the stall door. It was pale and blue, with dark eyes that seemed to stare right through me. My breath caught in my throat. I stumbled backward, my heart racing. I blinked, and the head was gone, leaving nothing but the empty stall. I felt a cold sweat break out across my forehead. I quickly left the bathroom, my legs feeling like they were made of lead. I glanced back one last time, but the bathroom was just as empty as before. I rushed back to the parking lot where my friends were waiting, chatting and laughing. I tried to act normal, but I could tell something was off. My stomach was still hurting, but now it felt like I had something heavy weighing on my mind. I told my friends I was fine and that we should head out. I didn't want to scare them or worry them with what I'd seen. We drove home, and I kept thinking about that ghostly head. I tried to brush it off as just my imagination playing tricks on me. It took me a couple of months before I could finally have the courage to go back to the park to hang out. Story 5. I was hanging out with a few friends at this park. We had been there for hours, and when it started getting dark, most of us decided it was time to head out. I was feeling pretty wiped, so I figured I'd just take a nap in the car before heading home. My friends left, and I curled up in the back seat, hoping for a quick snooze. I must have been out for a while because when I woke up, it was already pretty late and the park was quiet. My friends were gone and the park lights were casting these long, eerie shadows. The moon was out, so it wasn't completely dark, but everything still had this strange, otherworldly feel to it. I rubbed my eyes and stretched, trying to shake off the sleepiness. As I looked out of the car window, I saw something that made me do a double take. There was a woman running around the park playing with a ball. She looked like she was having a great time, just kicking the ball and running after it. At first, it seemed kind of normal, maybe a bit odd that she was out there alone so late, but nothing too strange. Then she kicked the ball and it rolled toward my car. I noticed something weird about the ball. It looked like it was stuck to some hairs. My first thought was, maybe it got caught in some bushes or something. I didn't think much of it until the woman came running up to get it. That's when my heart almost stopped. When she got closer, I realized something horrifying. She was headless. The ball wasn't just stuck to some hairs, it was her head. Her head had somehow become detached and was lying on the ground, making it look like it was part of the game. I was frozen, staring in shock. My brain was struggling to make sense of what I was seeing. She was running around, her neck just a bloody stump. The head that was now the ball had this look of happiness and a wide smile on its face. It was like something out of a nightmare. I tried to tell myself it was some kind of trick or illusion. Maybe it was a prank, or I was seeing things because I was still groggy. But there was no way to explain the feeling of sheer terror that washed over me. I felt like my heart was going to burst out of my chest. I wanted to get out of there, but I was so paralyzed with fear that I couldn't move. The headless woman picked up her head from the ground and started walking away. She didn't seem to notice me. It was like she was just going about her business, her head rolling gently between her hands. I could see the bloody stump of her neck, and it made me shiver. I waited until she was far enough away, then I turned on the engine. I glanced back one last time, and she was gone. The park was empty and silent again. I felt like I had been dreaming, but the terror I felt was all too real. I hurriedly drove out of there as fast as I could. My hands were shaking on the wheel, and my thoughts were racing. I couldn't believe what I had just witnessed. I kept glancing in the rearview mirror, half expecting to see that headless woman chasing after me. When I finally got home, I was still in a daze. I tried to tell myself it was just a bad dream, but the images were burned into my mind. I kept having a feeling of dread that followed me all the way home. I tried to do some research, looking up if anyone else had reported anything similar, but I found nothing. To this day, I can't explain what I saw. It felt like I had stumbled into some kind of weird reality where things just didn't make sense. I've never gone back to that park, and I don't think I ever will. The memory of that night, of the headless woman and her ball, still haunts me. I hope that I never have to see anything like that again. Thank you for listening to this video. I'll see you in the next one.